Good afternoon from the Gothenburg Water Utilization Learning Center. My name is Brian Olson, manager of the site, and I'm here with Mark Ryman, our agronomist. And Mark, we tried to cut this video portion out in the field, but the wind was causing us problems. So today we want to talk about what we're trying to do here is put out fertilizer, and the best ways to do that in a very challenging spring where we got a lot of moisture out there and we're not able to get into the fields like we really wanted to. So we're out here looking at a field that's been strip tilled, and strip till is really a beneficial way of getting our fertilizer down because we're getting it below the soil surface, but it definitely can run into some problems when we are in some wet soil conditions. So what are some of those things that can happen if we're strip tilling when it's too wet?
Well, some indications and things we see out there are just, when you run the strip tiller through, you really want to break up that soil. But if it's too wet, maybe you got a little too much clay in the soil, it really just smears that sidewall. You don't get any of that breaking action that you look for. And at the surface, you're just, you're breaking it up a little at the surface, but down below, you're not having the impact you want with the strip till. In fact, you might be really hurting your soil conditions for later in the year if you're out there strip tilling too wet, just making some blocky structures, some massive structures along those shanks underneath the soil surface.
So if we run into the situation, and again, it really has to be on a field-by-field basis because you can have some low residue fields where you might be able to strip till, a few days beforehand, some other fields that have a heavier residue, or there also might be some differences between your sand, silt, and clay content that can really impact if a field is able to be strip tilled or not. So if you are unable to get to a certain field and to strip till, what are some other options that could be used?
Some of the other options are we use what we call streamer bars, and they apply fertilizer in streams rather than like a broadcast spray. So we can use liquid fertilizers that way, and then you leave less of that fertilizer for tie up. Say if there's a lot of crop residue, especially wheat. And you leave it less likely to, move off the soil surface or volatilize. So there's some definite benefits. We use the streamer bars versus, just like a broadcast spray application. Another fast method that guys are doing, but in really windy conditions, you can have a problem, would be your dry fertilizer applications if you really get pressed for time. But, if it gets too windy, guys got to stop those operations as well.
Yeah, and so again, both of those options are better than broadcasting because broadcasting just provides a lot of opportunities for that nitrogen to get tied up. So strip till would be by far the best option on some irrigated ground, and then if you want to minimize any tillage operations or go to complete no-till on some dry land ground, the streamer bars work out really well to concentrate that nitrogen. And so what are we also looking at for soil temperature?
Well, the soil temps, they are climbing. We've had some warm days. So under the soybean residue here, we're looking right at 50 or a little above. So you start to get excited and think, well, maybe, corn planting's not that far off. But looking at the weather coming in, we're probably looking at the soil temperatures headed back down for a while. We're just not going to be anywhere near the temperatures, and we're going to have some snow, maybe up to 5 to 6 inches. And once that melts, it's really going to push those soil temperatures back down into the 30s.
Yeah, and so it's important to think about when we're looking at soil temperature. We want to have that soil temperature up above 50 degrees at least for 5 or 6 days, and look at that long-term forecast. And so as we mentioned, we're probably going to have a blizzard coming in here on Thursday and Friday, and the temperature is going to drop back. And so we want that corn, and then following that soybean to get off to the right start. So making sure we've got soil temperatures up at a steady 50 degrees for corn, 55 degrees for soybeans. We want to see that for a number of days in a row before we start pulling the planter in there. It's definitely going to be a challenging spring. Things are going to get compressed, and so again, we want to get that fertilizer placed out there in the fields if we can in the right way, and not cause any problems that we're going to have to be dealing with for the rest of the growing season. Because if we work that ground too wet, we are definitely going to be causing ourselves some problems. So any final thoughts, Mark?
No, other than just, reiterating that warning. I've had situations in the past where I haven't stopped, strip tilling or stopped tilling when it got too wet in an area, and that, causes us issues, season long. So to get yourself off to a good start.
Okay, well, with that, we will talk to you in the future about other agronomic topics from the Learning Center. Thank you. This video was produced by the Bayer Crop Science Water Utilization Learning Center near Gothenburg, Nebraska.